An independent watchdog group is actually suggesting that Ted Cruz may have broken the law by accepting a $630,000 donation to his super PAC, which is called the Truth and Courage Political Action Committee. The $630,000 donation from the year 2023, which accounted for a third of Cruz's PAC's income that year, came from iHeartRadio. And iHeartRadio happens to be the syndicate that actually airs Ted Cruz's podcast, for which he has assured us multiple times, including in responding to this story, he doesn't get paid for it. He does that poor podcast out of the goodness of his heart. So if the company that he's producing a free podcast for wants to give $630,000 to his political action committee, then they should be allowed to do it. See, there's multiple problems with this, as the Watchdog group points out. First and foremost is the fact that any company that employs lobbyists, and I'm not talking about a company that goes out there and hires a lobbying firm. Pretty much all major companies do that. But if your company itself actually employs lobbyists on the payroll, then federal campaign finance laws prohibit you from accepting any contributions, including into your political action committee, from that organization, unless they are, nominal. If they want to give you $1,000, that's okay. If they want to give you $630,000, that's definitely not okay. See the difference? Like, okay, 1,000, maybe $500, or over $500,000. Yeah, big difference there, Ted. And then, of course, you have the issue where, again, Ted Cruz is doing this podcast for free for iHeartRadio. Yet iHeartRadio, when they were asked, why did you give Ted Cruz so much money? Their vice president of public relations said the payments to Truth and Courage PAC are, quote, associated with those advertising sales for the podcast. Uh-oh. See, that statement is indicative of you paying him for the podcast. Now, listen, if Ted Cruz wants to get paid to be a podcaster, even while serving as a sitting member of the United States Senate, he is allowed to do that. Like, you can make money off of that. However, you can't disguise that income because, again, iHeartRadio said, hey, this is based on the ad sales we get from his podcast that he doesn't get paid for. So we're basically giving his money to him, but you're funneling it through his political action committee. If that's not illegal, then I don't know what would be, right? Because this almost, to me, the only way I think I could describe it would be like money laundering, kind of, I mean, that's the way I see it. Maybe you see it differently. Maybe you have a better definition. But if it's like, hey, I need to give you this money, but I'm worried about giving you this money this way. So instead, I'm going to send the money through here. Okay, this other thing over here, which then you can access at a later time. That's how money laundering actually works. I'm not saying that Ted Cruz is guilty of money laundering by any stretch of the imagination, but this certainly gives the appearance of iHeartRadio trying to funnel money to Ted Cruz while skirting certain, rules and regulations here. But it's the fact that they gave so much, and of course, such a large donation from a company that employs lobbyists, that's what really raised the red flags. But there seems to be a lot of red flags here, and I think I agree with the Campaign Legal Center, and maybe Ted Cruz broke the law with this, maybe he didn't, but as the Campaign Legal Center says, the very least we could do is to have an investigation and maybe clear all this up, for Ted Cruz, for iHeartRadio, and of course for the public, because I think we all deserve to know if a sitting member of the United States Senate is breaking campaign finance laws. But even if he is, don't worry about it. These things rarely, if ever, get enforced. He might pay a fine, which would probably be smaller than the amount he actually received from them. So even if he did break the law, nothing will happen to Ted Cruz.